Hello guys, welcome to the first part of the three-part series on which we're going to study profit in Farming Simulator 22. In this first version we're gonna look at all the raw materials. We're gonna do every single crop that's available except for poplar and other trees, because we will do that in a separate video, because otherwise it's just gonna be too long, because the wood department is seriously huge enough to make a video on its own. So to make this experiment, I first cut out a little part of this field. It's on the Elm Creek map. I'm just gonna take a little corner here and turn the rest of the field into grass so that I have a similar field available for all the crops. And these crops include grapes and olives, because I'll just build an orchard on this little rectangle squarish thingy. So yeah, we're just gonna make sure that this whole field is turned into grass, just to be sure that we're not gonna make any mistakes with that. And we have this cute little small field because this will make life just a lot easier. Otherwise it's gonna take me 2 months instead of 2 weeks. Okay, so we start with canola. This field gives us a yield of 580 liters, and this amount sells for 1,284 euros. Regarding the time spent on seeding and harvesting, you'll get a 20 euro profit from this crop per second spent. You can do 1.5 yield harvest per year on this crop if you turn off seasons, and there is no special equipment needed for this crop. Special equipment though is only for specific equipment that's only suitable for that crop. Okay. Soybeans gave us a yield of 450 liters. It had a selling price of 1,629 euros. Time spent on this crop is not too bad. Therefore, we had a price per time spent of 27 euros, and this crop can do 2 harvests a year if you turn seasons off. Again, this crop doesn't need special equipment because all the equipment used in this crop is also suitable for other crops, so you don't have to buy anything. Sorghum. It gave a yield of 819 liters, and it had a selling price of 1,313 euros for this little field. The price per second spent on seeding and harvesting was 20 euros, and this crop can do 3 harvests a year. Again, this crop also doesn't need special equipment. And actually, this crop surprised me a little, because I expected it to be a little lower, but it's not too bad at all. Okay, then we're gonna go to the grains. Wheat had a yield of 889 liters with a selling price of 1,107 euros. The price to time ratio is 26 euros per second, and you can do 1.7 harvests a year if you turn seasons off. You don't need special equipment, and the plus on wheat is that you also get an income from straw, which was 3,664 liters, which makes an extra 542 euros. This price is included in the price per second spent on seeding and harvesting, just so you know. Then we move to the next one, which is barley. It gave a yield of 959 liters with a selling price of 1,133 euros. The price per second spent was 24 euros, and the amount of harvests per year possible if you turn seasons off is 2. You don't need any special equipment, and again, for this crop you'll get some straw yield, which is for this tiny little field 3,571 liters, good for a amount of 529 euros extra. Again, this is also included in the price per time spent. Then we have oats, the last grain that also gives us some straw. We had a yield of 569 liters. The selling price was 1103 euros and the price per second spent was 23 euros. This crop can do 3 harvests a year, which is pretty good. You don't need any special equipment, and you also have a straw yield of 3,672 liters, which is good for 543 euros. So far the grains. Now we move on to the next one, which is corn. Corn, just the kernels, not the silage, is 919 liters from this tiny little field, which gave us a price of 1,366 euros for this field. The price per time spent is 14 euros per second, and you can do 2 corn harvests per year. You don't really need special equipment because you can also use this harvester for other crops, which is really not too bad at all, but the price per second is pretty low though. Then we move on to the next one, which is sunflowers. We had a yield of 520 liters, a selling price of 1,278 euros. The price per second was 13 euros, and you can only do 1.7 harvests per year. You don't need any special equipment. Overall, this crop really did not do good because the price per second is very low and the amount of harvest is very low and the selling price is also pretty low. So, unless you need this for food, for your animals, I wouldn't bother. Okay. Now we move on to the next one, which is kind of interesting for most of us. Sugar beets. Known to take lots of time. It gave us a yield of 5,752 liters of this field, which had a selling price of 2,692 euros in total. The price per second spent was 13 euros, which is very low because of the fact that the harvesting goes very slow for these beets. The amount of harvests available per year, if you turn seasons off, is 1.7. And as said before, you have to have a special harvester, which is kind of expensive for the sugar beets. Then we have cotton. A very special crop. You get a yield of 497 liters, which had a selling price of 2,154 euros on this on this little field. You have a price of 15 euros per second spent on seeding and harvesting, and you can do 1.5 harvests a year. The only special equipment you need to buy for this crop is a harvester, which is also super expensive because it's very specific. Though you have a choice of 2 harvesters in Farming Simulator 22, which is an improvement, because you can also do round bales now. Potatoes. They had a yield of 3,201 liter with a selling price of 2,097 euros. The price per second spent was 13 euros, which is also low because of the small harvesters, relatively. The harvests available per year is 2.4, and you really need a lot of special equipment for this crop because you need a special planter and a special harvester, which you cannot use for any other crop. So that's quite an issue. Then we move on to the next one, which is sugarcane. I never did this crop before, and it seemed to me that it would be a pain. But the yield was 10,863 liters from this little tiny field. We had a selling price of 4,400 euros, but the price per second, as I told you before, it was slow, so it was just 9 euros, very, very low. The amount of harvest per year is 1.5, and you need all special equipment for this crop because you need planter, harvesters, and you need to buy special seed as well. So yeah, it is interesting, but I'm not really sure if it's time efficient. Time efficient, it's not, but for the rest it's fine. Then we have the new grapes. they gave a yield of 927 liters and a selling price of 2,088 euros. The price per second was also very low, just 9 euros. It can do 2 harvests a year, but for the orchard you need to have a special harvester for each crop. And on top of that, you need to build the orchard, and that, my friends, is very expensive. Seriously, you need lots of crops to earn the build of your orchard back. So think about it twice before you start it, my advice. Then we have the other orchard, which is olives. It gave us a yield of 858 liters, good for a selling price of 1,804 euros. And the price per second here is only 7 euros, and it will give you 3 harvests per year. You also need a special harvester for this one and also build an orchard, which is very expensive. You cannot use helpers in orchards. You need to do everything yourself, and you need to do the spraying, mulching, everything by yourself, and it takes forever because you have to drive through these super small, tiny little orchards, and it's really... If you don't like your time spent on something else, you can do orchard, but for me, it's not going to be worth it. Grass, 4,360 liters from this tiny little field with a selling price of 680 euros. The price per second was 9 euros, and you can do 4 harvests a year, which is massive. You don't really need special equipment because these mowers can also be used to turn the grass into hay or silage. So therefore I decided to put an axe here because you can use it for hay and silage as well, and not just for grass. The amount of harvests you can do per year is very, very, very high, so that's why grass might be a very nice crop to deal with. From grass you can make hay, which gave us a yield of 4,356 liters. A selling price was 867 euros. The price per second was 8 euros, which is very low. But you can also do 4 harvests of these. The only special equipment needed for hay is a tether, because that's just needed to turn your grass into hay. And for the rest, all the other equipment, whether you're using a forage wagon or a baler, they're all can be used for some other crops as well, like straw, grass, whatever you want. Then we have the next one, which we can make out of grass, which is grass silage. It gave us a yield of 4,587 liters, which is good for a selling price of 2,700 euros and 71. The price per second spent is 37, which is extremely high. Considered the amount of harvests, which is 4 per year. This is a very interesting crop, guys. You can put the grass silage in a bunker silo, but you can also use a bale wrapper, and if you do so, then the bale wrapper will be the special equipment needed for this crop, because it just can be used for grass silage. Okay, then we have the next form of silage, which is corn silage. It gave us a massive yield of 7,174 liters, a selling price of 4,333 euros. The price per second, guys, look at this. It's 45 euros. 45 euros per second spent, my gosh. You can do 2 harvests a year for this crop if you turn seasons off. But the special equipment needed for this one is silage harvester, and they are not really cheap. So, then we move on to the top 5s. What crop is actually doing good? Sorry for the slide here. So, for profit, you would do corn silage as a number 1. And number 2, we have sugarcane. Number 3 is grass silage. Number 4, sugar beets. And number 5, cotton. And this was actually surprising. I never expected sugarcane and cotton to appear in any top 5. And really not as high as this for sugarcane at all. So this top 5 is just for one single round from one single field, okay? No other variations considered here. Then the next top 5 is the profit per year. So the amount of harvest per year when seasons are turned off is like this. The grass silage is number 1. Number 2 is corn silage. Number 3, sugarcane. Number 4, oats. Number 5, potatoes. Beware, if you are using seasons, grass silage still is number 1 because you can do still more harvests per year, which is really not possible for a lot of the other crops, okay? So you have to keep that in mind. Grass silage always will be number 1 when you look at the amount of profit you'll get from it per year on a yearly basis, okay? Then we have the last top 5 profit, which is the profit per time spent on seeding and harvesting. So corn silage is the number 1 here, because you get the most profit out of the time spent on it. Then number 2 is grass silage again. Number 3, and here it starts to be interesting, soybeans. Number 4, interesting again, wheat. Number 5, barley and oats. Why this is, that's just because they're super easy to handle crops. You don't need specific equipment and you don't need anything fancy, and you have all these huge machines you can use for these. Okay guys, this will be it for today. Just take all of this information to your advantage and let me know what you think about it. Stay tuned for the next 2 in this series. Thank you, bye bye.